Hello, and welcome back to the channel. This week we have a special episode of our Masterclass series. We are joined by ToppoWoppo to talk about Best of One as a specialty and a little bit of hard trick room as that's what he specialises in during Best of One. I think this is especially valuable this week because the Global Challenge is coming up this weekend, and I think it's going to be some really valuable information there for you guys. One thing to note is that this was recorded prior to Michael Kelch winning Stockholm Regionals, so there's no mention of that, which obviously would be relevant to the hard trick room conversation. But there's some really great advice and tips from Toppo in here in how to optimise for Best of One. I really hope it helps some of you guys with your global challenges or with your cart ladder experiences. And without any further ado, let's get into the conversation. This time we are with Toppo to talk about Best of One as a specialty and hard trick room. I think they can sort of feed into each other, so I thought we'd get on to talk about both. And if you don't recognise them, how about we just do this? There we go. Now you recognise him. Cool. So why don't you introduce yourself, man, and then we'll get into the conversation.
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, thank you for, having me on. Super excited. But for those who don't know me, I'm ToppoWoppo. I'm a Trick Room One Trick. I'm a Poke Dad. Soon to be Poke Dad 2, by the way, starting in September. Um,
Likewise.
yeah, let's go. Yeah, and I'm a husband. And I'm also a Twitch streamer. I stream 5 days a week, every single day except for Tuesday and Friday. And yeah, I'm at twitch.tv/ToppoWoppo, and I'm pretty much ToppoWoppo on all social medias. But yeah, I love to play Trick Room, pretty much all I play, and uh, not really a competitor to me. Well, actually, no, I don't consider myself a competitor. I mostly just consider myself to be a streamer. So yeah, I'm pretty much just play best of ones. Not to say I can't play best of threes. I guess prefer to play best of one because I mean that's just that's just my content. So
For sure, man. And I thought that's why it'd be really interesting to have you on. So,
Mhm.
obviously, people are trying to optimize for the global challenge. You have a second
Yep.
place behind you and lots of other respectable results.
Yep.
So, how do you think specializing in best of one differs from a best of three specialist?
Yeah, absolutely. So best of one, as everyone who plays VGC, whether you compete or don't, um, yeah, it's obviously different from best of three in the sense that you don't have as much information. A lot of it is a guessing game. Cheese obviously works a lot better in best of one compared to best of three, right? Best of three open team sheets, you have all that information laid out in front of you, except for like the EVs, IVs, the natures, like that. You still kind of have to guess. But in best of one, it's just like you never know what to expect. Like you can infer based off of a team select, right? Like from turn zero, as people call it. But for the most part, you have to sort of just like you sort of just have to guess, like what your opponent has, what they might have. So there's not as much information. Um, I definitely say in a best of one, it's like it's one and done. So you have to win that one, otherwise it's pretty much done there, unless you happen to get queued up with the same person later on. Best of one definitely feels like quicker, um, a lot more surprises, and I think because I play only best of one, I play a very I call it like a YOLO play style, in which I sort of just have the mindset of, hey, like I'm just gonna play this, I'm just gonna lock in this plan, lock in these moves. If it works, it works. If I lose, then oh well, just move on to the next game, right? Whereas I think in best of three, I think people usually have a mentality of being a lot more careful, right? They don't want to just sometimes maybe they will just YOLO it and they'll say like, oh well, even if it doesn't work this game, I still have another game potentially two, to make up for that. But I think in like best of one, it's kind of just like, okay, if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. Whatever. And that's just sort of the way that I sort of approach the game. In all honesty, that's just sort of mindset. Like I don't play best of three, so I don't know. A lot people who do play best of three, they can probably speak to it better than I can. But at least for best of one, that's sort of my mindset just going into it.
For sure. So, Do you think that team preview is like extremely important in best of one? Sort of what you can infer from preview. Do you think that's like a skill that obviously it's great for best of three as well, but like especially important in best of one?
Yeah, absolutely. Because like best of three, right? You have like what, like 2 minutes or so to sort of just like look over the team sheet, and you know exactly what your opponent has, right? Like best of one, it's a lot, yeah. It's obviously a lot more volatile. So, like for example, as me as a trick room player, sometimes like I can infer, like if I see like for example an Indeedee mail, I'll think, okay, that Indeedee mail most likely it's trying to reverse trick room or it's trying to imprison trick room, right? Whereas like in like best of three, you know right away. You'd see like, oh, that thing has imprison. Okay, I know exactly what it's gonna do. Like best of one, like I think you can infer like, oh, you see Indeedee mail, oh, it has trick room, but it like you're mostly sure that it has trick room, but maybe it doesn't have trick room. Maybe it has um some completely unknown tech that you wouldn't even expect from it. Um, and yeah, there's doubt. It's a lot. I'd say it's a lot harder to prepare for sure. Um, just like as like another example, I've ran into actually a whole bunch of Iron Ball Kyogres these past few weeks. Something that I pretty much never would expect. But then you set up Trick Room, and then suddenly that Kyogre is moving before your Calyrex Ice Rider that's mid speed, and you're just like, whoa, there's no way for me to have prepared for that. Um, but also with that being said, I generally never complain, even when I do get cheesed. Just because as a best of one player, I just accept that that's the kind of game that I play. That's the game that I choose to play. That's the content I choose to stream, and inevitably you are going to get cheesed, right? No matter how good you are, you just have to accept sometimes your opponent is just going to do things that obviously will not work in a best of three, but it does work in a best of one, right?
Yeah.
So I always I'm never of like that mindset of like, oh, like if I played you in a best of three, you never would have gotten away with this. Like I think that's just not the right mindset to have when you're playing best of one, because you're playing best of one. So of course it worked. Like of course they're probably not going to use it in a best of three, but it's a best of one,
Yeah.
and you just have to accept it. I think that's like the healthy kind of mindset that you need to have when you're playing best of one. You just have to accept sometimes you're just going to get cheese. It doesn't matter if it wouldn't have worked in best of three. It worked, and you just have to accept that.
Yeah, for sure. So would you say like because I think yeah, you saying like you do your best to not get frustrated by obviously by getting
Yep.
cheesed. Like how like sort of how do you sort of deal with that, and also how do you sort of maintain the consistency that you do? Obviously, because I think relating this to the global challenge, which obviously a lot of traditionally best of three players are playing best of
Mm-hmm.
one close sheets,
Yep.
um, and some of them absolutely hate it. I don't mind it,
Yep.
but some people really hate it because they just
Mm-hmm.
can't deal with the randomness or the random
Yep.
terrors or like the iron balls or a random item. How do you think you maintain that consistency on the best of one ladder and in the GCs?
Yeah, so I think just, obviously practice makes perfect, right? Because I'm strictly a best of one player, like I always have that sort of best of one mindset. I just don't really care enough, I guess, for best of, like, obviously I like watching best of threes, right? I like watching people play limitless tourneys. I like watching regionals, internationals, which are obviously all OTS, BO3. Like, I like watching them. I myself personally don't play them. But yeah, I think the main thing is honestly just practice, right, and just constantly playing it. Like I said, I stream 5 days a week, right, and on average, I stream like nearly 20 hours every week on average. A little bit less because Saturdays and Sundays I don't stream quite as much. But yeah, like it's basically all I play, right, and when I lose, I honestly just don't take it. I honestly don't take it hard. I just tell myself, hey, if I lose, on to the next game, on to a new opponent. We'll see what happens. Even when I go on a losing streak, I've sort of just like learned to accept like, hey, sometimes that happens. Even for like someone who plays best of one as much as I do, and who's like very used to being in like those triple or like double and even single digits on cart ladder. Like sometimes you're just not gonna have a good day, and you're just not gonna do so great, and you'll drop to like a ranking that you don't really see yourself usually being in. And like also I have like other cart ladder warrior friends who have told me the same thing, that sometimes they just have days where they're not as consistent as they usually are. Like it does happen to everyone. And I think the best, like honestly, like the best simple advice I could give for that, like you just can't let it get to you. I know it's easier said than done, but also if you look at actual like competing like players who actually compete in the circuit, like sometimes even some like people who I guess a lot of people will consider top players, you'll see tweets from them saying like, oh, like I'm 2-4, like this is just not my regional, and they're at like the very top of like the championship point standings, like in North America or in Europe. Like it can happen to anyone, um, right? No one's invincible
Yeah,
at this game,
absolutely.
except
Um,
maybe like one or two people, but yeah.
yeah, yeah. Like you're getting sniped for first in the GC by Wolf, which is just
Yeah.
yeah, man. Um, so yeah, so moving on to hard trick room, and like
Mhm.
I suppose first of all, like is hard trick room better in best of one close sheets? Do you think? And like what are its benefits in best of one? Like is it? Yeah, I think you talk about consistency. Like is it one of the
Mhm.
most consistent ways to win in best of one? Do you think?
Anecdotally, I would say yes. I think in best of one, right? Like not everyone's going to be I don't know, not everyone's going to be prepared for it. You also don't even know if it's going to be hard trick room, right? Like I run hard trick room, but like maybe some people will make some of their mons a little more speedy. Maybe you think it's hard trick room, but it's really not hard trick room. But like I think in best of one, right? Like you just don't have that ability to adjust. I think if in like a best of three, I think like you run into hard trick room. If you get demolished like turn one, maybe turn sorry in game one, perhaps in games two and three, you can adjust. In best of one, obviously you don't have that luxury. Um, and also, I think just hyper offense in general in best of one just works really, really well, right? Like you get like knocked out right away. You can't really like adapt to that. You don't have time to think about like games two and three because there are no games two and three. And like Trick Room, it literally just simplifies the game. Like you don't have to think about speed tiers. You don't have to invest anything into speed, right? If you're going hard trick room, that all goes into bulk. You don't have to worry about getting icy winded, about getting tailwinded. Like it literally just like flips the game all on its head, like like literally and figuratively. And that's honestly what I like about it. It literally just simplifies the game. And that's actually part of the reason why I started playing it. And I think just like playing it over and over and just not getting bored of it, honestly, um, I think that's where I sort of find success in Best of One.
For sure. And like again, I think people definitely build differently for best of one. I know I definitely build differently for best of one. Like, what would you say are like some useful building techniques for best of one? I know you sometimes
Mhm.
take on raw. It's like raw on your Ursaluna or
Yep.
focus sash on your DD. Like items where they
Yep.
shouldn't be, moves where they shouldn't be, stuff like that. But yeah, what would your tips be for building for best of one?
I think for Best of One, it's sort of just tying back to what I said before, using I guess like surprise texts, like surprise terras that you might not see in a best of three format, right? Like I think just going into it with that best of one mindset of who cares if this wouldn't work in an open team sheet, right? Like who cares if I get demolished if I play this in like a best of three open team sheet format? I want to have that like sort of surprise or like that that I want to have that like surprise tech that they just like can't adapt to in a best of one format. So like my team, I don't know, like my team for example, like I just have like I have like I have roar to like stop in prison, to stop setup on an Ursaluna, and I guess like maybe people just don't expect roar, right? I have like Terra Ground on my Gallade, for Miraidon. Um, I have Terra Psychic, which is a very greedy Terra typing for Hatterene. Granted, the individual who got second place at Vancouver also had Terra Psychic, but I don't know. I think a lot of people do prefer, a more defensive Terra on Hatterene as opposed to Terra Psychic. But I like Terra Psychic because it just catches people off guard, especially in best of ones. And there are just so many times where I just like knocked out like Amoonguses even after they terrored with expanding force because I was Terra Psychic. Whereas I think like best of threes, right? If you're gonna go like Trick Room, I think you want some more utility, which I actually think that's where the Trick Room team that got second place in Vancouver like sort of shined. I think like that Smeargle honestly made a huge difference. Because Smeargle you can wide guard, you can spore, you can fake out. Whereas like my team, it doesn't have fake out. It's almost solely reliant on like Indeedee just like stopping all priority and just getting up Trick Room and then just sort of taking advantage of psychic terrain. Like my team's like very like I guess like one dimensional in that aspect. Whereas like the second place team from Vancouver, I think like just having that Smeargle there just made all the difference. I know a lot of hard Trick Room teams do have Smeargle in them, but I don't know. I think his team uh, definitely was better overall for best of three as compared to like mine, for example, which is very one dimensional, and there are just like some teams that I just simply can't beat.
Absolutely. I think, yeah, it all sort of harks back to, sometimes in best of one, you just lose. And
Yep.
that's like, yeah. And if you can sort of accept that and, like, yeah, not tilt from it and move on, I think
Yep.
that's really good advice. Um, and then just looking at sort of general best of one play, if you got any tips or tricks
Hmm.
of just like being a better best of one player, like things that you notice yourself doing that maybe you don't see other players doing that are less versed in best of one.
Yeah. So this is actually advice that was given to a VGC friend of mine. His name's Devin Powers. I believe he's a NorCal player. Shout out to Devin, by the way. So I actually took this advice to heart when he gave it to me almost 2 years ago. So I remember like back in July of 2023, I was streaming on Twitch, and Devin was in my chat, and he gave like this was like genuine advice, and I still take it to heart to this day. It was really good advice. Like he said to me like he was like observing me playing. He was like if I could give some advice, I'd say like don't be afraid to like take risks. Playing best of one, right? Like what do you have to lose? If you lose, just move on to the next game. And like it sounds like such simple advice, but like at the time like I wasn't playing like that, and I thought to myself, you know what, he's right, like I should play like that. And I think like ever since I was told that by Devin, um I've just been playing like like I've just been playing in like a manner in which like I guess I'm not afraid to take risks, right? Like I'm not afraid of like being embarrassed by getting like demolished turn one if I make the wrong call, right? Like just sort of like go with your gut. If you get the wrong call and you get completely destroyed turn one without being able to do anything, then so be it. You move on to the next game. Sometimes that's just going to happen, right? Like not every like best of one game, or like not every game that you play is going to be like a regional streamed match where like games go on for like who knows how long, right? Because people are pivoting, or I don't know, or maybe like going for like turns that like aren't like super risky, like yeah, I mean, sometimes you do get games where like someone gets like demolished on stream, but I think those are very far and few in between. But yeah, for me, like yeah, I honestly just play very risky. I'm not afraid to take risks in best of one for the most part, right? And I just sort of have that mindset of, hey, if I lose, if I get embarrassed on turn one, then so be it. I'll just move on to the next game, and hopefully next time, that sort of play will work. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. No, I think that's really great, and I think this is going to be really, really helpful for anyone either wanting to sort of do some streaming or play a lot more cart ladder. I mean, people like to aim for the top 30 for Liberty Note. That's always a fun one. Um, and obviously the big one is the GC. Like people
Mhm.
really want to the points from their GC for their BFL for their invites. It's a
Yep.
bigger factor this season, especially. So I think it's
Yep.
really all really good advice, and yeah, I'm sure people will be really appreciative. So yeah, just moving on to any shout outs, any socials to plug, and then we can move on out of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Socials, I'd say I'm ToppoWoppo on everything. On X, Twitter, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Twitch, which is my main platform. Trying to hit 6,000 followers before the end of the year, by the way. So if you guys want to drop a follow there, would be greatly appreciated. As for shout outs, I suppose, like my community, my mods who are always holding it down in my Twitch chat, and to my wife and my son who are upstairs in the living room.
Nice. Thanks, man. Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. You can find me everywhere as a Postman P. I also stream. I'm not as good at Cart Ladder as Toppo. We don't really cross over time wise, so catch us both. And yeah, we'll see you next time.